Hello, and welcome to yet another Website Depot podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Greg Benevent, and I'm also, as ever, very lucky to be joined by Noël Dombroski. How you doing, Noël?
Doing pretty good, hanging in there. How you doing today, Greg?
Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Hanging in there. Well, it's a slightly different format today. Usually, when Noël and I talk about what the topic of the podcast is going to be, I have some basic knowledge, whereas today I have literally none. So I will be learning even more so than usual alongside you, constant listener. So please, Noël, if you could tell us a little bit more about that utterly fascinating sounding thing you were talking about just a minute ago.
Of course. I've actually just learned about this myself because it's super, super new, but YouTube is rolling out their own kind of version of TikTok.
Mm.
Anybody who's been on social media in the last, I would say, few months has kind of seen every social media platform try to do its own version of it. Instagram has Reels, so a lot of people use that. And now YouTube is doing something similar. It's a 15-second video. It's not going to be a separate platform. It's still within the YouTube platform. But essentially,
Okay.
what you're going to see when you come upon the YouTube homepage and the app, it's launching this month in March, is like a carousel of 15-second videos, much like TikTok. So
Mm.
it's kind of like a double-edged. There's two things they're trying to do here. They're trying to compete with TikTok, obviously, but they also are saying that this is part of what they're part of a movement to kind of break the barrier. A lot of people feel like they can't upload to YouTube because they can't edit or they can't do all these crazy things.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
YouTube has expressed they feel like now there's almost kind of like a gatekeeping, so they want to get rid of that again and make it
Certainly.
more accessible, which is why they've launched this.
Okay. Oh, okay. That makes so much sense. I mean, that all sounds great. And not speaking on behalf of the company, but rather speaking on behalf of myself, I have felt that same thing, that concern that they're speaking to about the feeling that I had to, that they required some kind of editing ability or capability or technology that I might have lacked. It how I guess my first question then is about that exact thing. How are they getting around that barrier with this?
Well, the nice thing about things like TikTok and Reels and the way they've set a lot of the stuff up is there's a lot of built-in tools that you can use in terms of transitions, etc. But it's in sort of an in-console way to record your own content. So it's
Hmm.
almost rather than having a bunch of different pieces, setting up the camera, pulling it into editing, maybe having a mic, instead, much like creating a TikTok or a Snapchat story, it feels
Mhm.
more casual. You have everything kind of built in, your editing, your effects, your music, your sounds are all in this one place. So it's kind of streamlined for you. As
Okay.
the production value, there's less of a pressure there because if you've watched TikToks, Reels, etc., you don't have the crazy big budget effects. It really kind of drills down to the point. I think that's helpful too if you're just learning how to tell stories visually.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. So so all the tools are there and presumably easier to use. I guess my next question then is, when spoke to Kat on here the other day, what drew her to TikTok and certainly seemed like such an incredible selling point to me was that idea that everyone at least has this puncher's chance to go viral. This or at least, and just having spoken to others in the content creator space about how they even said like, hey, the first 5 videos or so, TikTok just puts them on in front of everybody, and then after that maybe you're kind of on your own. That could just be that person's experience, but I've certainly heard seen similar just from talking to others. Is there, it seems like that's another place where to really compete with TikTok. Did YouTube say anything about that, or?
Absolutely. And see, that's what I think is so interesting about this new development, and to see how this kind of plays out as this is released over the next month, because I think Kat is an excellent point. I don't know how YouTube is going to compete with that, the virality of TikTok. And she's so right in how it's made for you to blow up. And
Mhm.
it's a very centralized platform in terms of exactly what you're getting when you go onto it. You're getting a 6 to 15 second video. YouTube is a much broader marketplace, so it's less. You're getting such a mixed crowd. Um, so I will be interested to see how this factors. For example, I think TikTok is for the little guy. It blows up small businesses. It puts you out there. YouTube has such an environment that's already also got years and years of
It's
layers
stratified.
to it.
Yeah.
That, you know, you have tutorials, you have people doing vlogs, you have people, you know, just like doing their life every day and like, this is how I take care of my kids. So you, on top of that, you throw in all of the new stuff and the new short content. It's almost kind of like the consumer idea might, this is the risk, might be, why don't I just go to TikTok? So
Right.
I think
Yes.
the bigger selling point, rather than saying, okay, you know, if TikTok's too intimidating, do this, I would absolutely not say that. I think you need to be on TikTok, like hands down. And much like Kat said, and I think this is the case here, you know, it's only going to be so hot for so long. This idea is not only going to be so hot for so long. What you can capitalize on is the accessibility. And I think all
Mm.
these platforms, whether it's, you know what, I don't care if I go viral, I just want to finish a 15-second video that
Mm.
I like this
Okay.
is great. I've been thumping this Bible since like the first episode, but like this is really a great opportunity because you can go do it now. You can go create it on Instagram, and then you go create the same thing on TikTok, and you do it on YouTube, and you kind of adapt. So, you know, I think it serves more instead of as like a rocket, almost like TikTok is. It almost seems more like this YouTube feature is just kind of bridging the gap for people who are a little too intimidated to take that step to create their own content.
Ah, okay. So the idea might be then less of like, hey, this is, a true genuine alternative to TikTok, but rather as like an entryway into greater YouTube, as
Absolutely.
in like this is a way to get started there. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It I guess the other part of it it's interesting to me, and I feel like this is other than TikTok, which we were not a part of at the time. It feels like the first time I've certainly been on one of these and spoken to professionals such as yourself at the onset of something quite this new. I mean, I guess I'm curious, and there's probably not a good answer to this. Is like, where is that line between like, okay, I'm gonna do this new thing, and we're gonna be the pioneers of this, versus I'm gonna do this new thing, and there is no one here to see it. I mean, I'm assuming since it's YouTube, it's going to be, these shorter videos are still going to get out to more the greater YouTube community and not just the people that signed up for YouTube UEs, or what are these going to be called?
Oh, terrible. I should know what it is. YouTube
No,
Shorts.
that's okay. I tried to think of the most demeaning, ridiculous thing I could against the UEs, but and,
So like Reels and TikTok and Flim Flam, and so
right, right,
uh,
right.
to your to your point. See, but that's like, so then then it comes down to too, why does something like TikTok versus YouTube, who's been around, why didn't they think of this when YouTube did, or when TikTok did? And I think it really is about recognizing that lightning in a bottle.
Mm,
It's kind of like, I don't know, when I see things like this happen, like for example, Vine was a great example of something that didn't take off as much as TikTok, but was referenced in the last podcast, where it was 6 seconds, it was super quick, it was
mhm.
instant attention, people wanted to blow up, and then
Oh
everyone
yeah.
started trying to do it.
Mhm.
And it makes me think of an episode of, I don't know if you've ever seen Arthur, like the kids cartoon, but
I mean, a million years ago. Yeah.
they have this episode where there's like this hot thing. It's like a pet rock and everybody loves it. And just as it's starting to not get popular anymore, Arthur, he really wants to be part of it. And he gets his own, but
Mhm,
it's like a knockoff and it looks kind of
mhm,
silly and wimpy. But he's
mhm.
really excited. That's what a lot of these things feel like when you've had TikTok out for a whole year of a pandemic. And now a year later, we're getting YouTube Shorts. 6 to 8 months later, we're getting Instagram Reels. So I
Mhm.
think that's where it's important, to put on your business hat and to really be critical and say, it's easy to be like, oh, all these new developments are wonderful, but really think, okay, but TikTok was here first. You really can't recreate that. You're only ever going to be adding on to another platform when you're trying to recreate when that's all they do. When you start to try to tack it on to other things, it's kind of like, it's too much.
Mhm.
It's almost, it's like you're inundated, and then it becomes a matter too of like, okay, well, I want to create a short to promote my business. Gosh, do I put it on YouTube, TikTok, or Reels? you
Right.
know so that's when I think it's important, when you see these new developments, that's when it's important to pick up on TikTok 8 months ago as a business, as opposed to not right now, because now everybody's figured it out. That's why it's important, I think, to read the trades, to read what's happening, just the publications, because that's how I learned about this today and that this is coming out this month. So I think that that's also why it's important to, if you are serious, to try to stay on the head of things.
I mean, that all sounds great. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's not to, I don't want to give someone the wrong idea. I mean, the last time I spoke to Kat, she very much, literally referenced TikTok as the frontier, with the idea that, like, it was, we talk about, like, it was the people panning for gold, that the gold rush. The gold rush isn't over just because you're watching this podcast like a couple weeks later. It started, but the clock is ticking, as you said. I mean, eventually, TikTok, even despite its rocket viral power, will dissipate in terms of something else. I mean, and it also does seem, speaking of this YouTube thing, I mean, that's something that came to mind for me was, being a child, and someone talking to my 7th grade class about the stock market for the first time, and someone saying, "What do you invest in?" And the guy said back then, "Disney, because there's always going to be a Disney. It's always going to be fine." And I can't help but shake the feeling like, okay, here's YouTube from Google, who's always going to be fine. There's, last year it came up briefly during the election, the idea that we might ban TikTok. It might be banned from the country. No one is banning Google, nor YouTube, nor, those are going to be around forever. Certainly outlive any of us. So there might be a staying power there as well, that this sort of gets you into the it's I can't, I mean, look, I don't know the technical specs. I have not read the article you said, but it'd be very hard for me to believe that it would somehow not be beneficial for your business to do well with the YouTube shorts, and that somehow wouldn't lead to better success on YouTube and Google, and since they are all connected there.
Without a doubt. And I think this too is where it's important, when you're being presented with all these different options and different channels, to recognize what your business has to give, but in terms of what you like, time and energy can spend, what you have to give, and what's going to be the best use of your time. So for example, if you're a brand that already has an established Instagram following, it's not going to be worth it to drop everything and go over to YouTube all of a sudden if that's not part of the grand plan. If you have an Instagram following, go to Instagram Reels. If you if you have free time, if you want to invest a lot of energy, TikTok is one that that's a platform that reacts well the more you interact with it. The more you upload, the more it rewards you. So if you're somebody who's, maybe not a mother of 4 kids trying to start her own business, like, although I've seen those, and those are phenomenal TikToks as well. But, recognize what you have time for: short-term goals, long-term goals. I have friends who are in their 20s with jewelry businesses who make 3 or 4 TikToks a day, and they'll make a TikTok while they're making earrings, and then they'll take another one when it's done, and just keep putting stuff out there. That's a different thing. And then the third almost seems like YouTube, where it seems almost kind of like, if you are more serious about, I want to give advice, I want to create a video series, I want to start ranking for video things, that is when it might be best to funnel your energy into YouTube Shorts, so that you can bridge that gap and set yourself up for long term. Because much like you said, YouTube is never going away. TikTok is scary because that could be yanked at any moment.
Right.
But the more you invest in that YouTube space as well, that is a good space to be in if you want to rank. It's Google. So.
No, that all sound. I mean, this is, like I said, the last time I had Kat on, I'm like, I'm definitely going to start a TikTok soon. Now I'm like, I'm definitely going to start this YouTube Shorts. But I think that's just it. There's as appealing as all of these things can be. You said it so well about how it really does come to a question of what are your long-term and your short-term goals versus your resources, the time you can commit to these things. I mean, it does you almost no good to put out something that is not indicative of what you have to offer, whether that's in terms of resource allocation and or quality.
Absolutely.
And well, I learned a lot. I got a lot out of that. Is there anything else you can tell us about that? That covered it really well.
I think that's it. I just think whatever platform you feel most comfortable in, just start making stuff. It will reward you, whether in skills or algorithmically will reward you. So
I think that makes so much sense. Well, again, thank you so much for that. That was genuinely informative. Thanks again. All right. Well, good stuff. Yes. No. On behalf of Noel and Website Depot, my name is Greg Manavent. Take it easy. Have a good night.